Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. You've reached Llorraine Neithardt at Venus Unplugged. And what we do here is we work on and explore different aspects of Venus as an archetype, as an etheric aspect of ourselves in our personal lives, in beauty. Venus is the essence of all relatedness and what makes beauty within and without. The last couple of weeks we've been working on angels, archangels, and how they operate in our life and how to use them, how to honor them. And what we're going to talk about today, with the request of a very dear person, she asked, could we look at the angel Azrael? And that is the angel of death. Yeah, that's who that is. And that angel is always around, all right? And it's very interesting because death is something that very often people fear, but I think they fear it also because they don't examine the relationship that we have with it. It is always there. It is the one guarantee we have. We're born and we're going to leave. And this particular angel, and that's Azrael. There is another angel close to that in the name, and that's considered Satan or the devil. So these angels, which is, of course, an angel, but that's a fallen angel. And they're doing their work, too. Angels are always working, to or fro. That's what kind of creates the tension in the world. So Azrael, he has four, or it, I'm not sure that it's a he, has four faces to watch over the four cardinal points of Earth. And he has 4,000 wings in his whole body and consists of eyes and tongues, that the number of which corresponds to the number of people inhabiting the Earth, which is kind of an interesting image. It's like one of the wrathful dakinis in the Tibetan religion, I suppose. Okay, and he will be the last to die, and he is recording, and he's constantly recording and erasing because he walks around with this book, kind of the book of life. And in that book, he records the birth, and then he records he takes you over to eternity, infinity, the cosmos. So he's constantly walking around with this large book and the names of men and women at birth and at death, which is a very, very interesting image to see. And that kind of image of erasing. Now, that can become an absolute threat to our egos. I don't want to be erased because we want our works to on the earth to count, and they do count, and they will count through those that we love, and being remembered. It's very important to be remembered. It's very important for the ancestors to be remembered here on Earth. But it is a huge universe. And so this particular angel, which is the one that takes us through the threshold. Now, there are a lot of indwelling beliefs of heaven and hell, and I believe that there are realms that are heaven and hell. I'm not sure that there's anybody in them because there is so much more to imagine and be. And I think if there is an actual place of hell, what happens in that place, what burns off, we're not going to eternally burn in hell, which is kind of like, that's tyranny. And I think the cosmos is a lot more creative than the tyranny of that. I think that keeps us in line when we're children, give them something that really terrifies them. But as evolving adults, hopefully, or at least that's what we're trying for, there's much more to be imagined. It's far greater. than that limited point of view. Okay, and for those that are into that, well, you keep on keeping on. All right. So when we have this terror of this particular angel who is always present, there's no such thing as an early death or a late death or any of that. Death is death. It's kind of like it's written on the back of our hearts, the place of wisdom, the birth and the death. So there are no mistakes. It can feel that way. But if we have a relationship in our imagination, instead of imagining just the terror and fear, to say, well, this is the one certainty in our existence. And I need to, I don't know whether we can completely understand what this angel is about, but that death in and of itself, now, of course, disease, that's a different thing. Disease and death are two different things. We die of death. Sometimes the disease gets us there, and I think one of the reasons we have disease is because, nobody would want to leave. And we do have to go because there are greater determinations. So what burns off in this region called hell is what we went unprocessed, or what we wouldn't look at, or what we needed to let go of. It's an alchemical image of burning off the dross matter. So when we are praying, or some people are into magic and doing ritual and asking and beseeching, and that angels are our guides, and they help us, and they're much closer to the frequency of the divinity, because we would burn up immediately, because we're human beings, if we try to approach or look upon the face of the divine directly. So these angels are the ones that help us, along with this particular Azrael. And we need to allow ourselves to be, as light workers, or as people who are trying to understand or accept. We pray and we stir and we do ritual, but we also need to understand there is a price. And the price is the exchange. So we're asking for whatever we're asking for, but we need to say, okay, so what price am I willing to pay? I want this beloved in my life, right? But then I'm going to need to pay the price of chipping off a little bit of one's own pride or one's own ego, or what gets in the way of our understanding. And that's what people don't remember. It's not one-sided. It's organic. As above, so below. What's in, what's out. Or if people see, things in a karmic level, it's like the karmic isn't the punishment. I hear that a lot. Well, it's karma, which there's a slight revenge. It's like, well, that's your karma. Nah. It's like, no, we don't know who's coming and going. Are we paying it off, or are we starting it? So we're not, and we don't know. Your dharma may override their karma. We don't know. But what we do know is trying to understand our own relationship to our shadow and to our light, to our beauty, to our gold. And this particular angel is constantly recording, kind of like a bookkeeper. So when, I don't know if you know about the work of Stephen Jenkinson, Die Wise. It's a brilliant book. And what his work is about is becoming an elder, being able to really understand and help people, particularly with this phenomenon called death, and how we prolong our death, and in prolonging it, and not having a relationship with this thing called death, we miss out on a lot. We don't understand, and he has a lot of truth. He has a lot of understanding. So for those of you that really want to start to die wise, it's very good work. His website is Orphan Wisdom. So this particular angel that we're talking about goes unnoticed, but it's always with us. So Azrael, is the meaning of that is whom God helps. And in Hebrew and in Islamic law, the angel of death, stationed in the third heaven, Azrael, is another form of Raphael. And in this tradition, he has 70,000 feet and 4,000 wings. His body is provided with as many eyes and tongues as there are men in the world. Powerful image. And in the Arabic tradition, Azrael is forever writing in a large book the birth of a man, and he erases the name of the man at death. When they're doing work outside my apartment, that's not Azrael coming. When Michael and Gabriel and Israel failed to provide 7 handfuls of earth for the creation of Adam, the fourth angel on his mission, Azrael, succeeded. And because of this feat, he was anointed to separate body from soul, which is also alchemical, when we're burning off the dross matter so that the soul is left free. And in the Oriental legend, has it that Azrael accomplished his mission, bringing death first and separation afterwards, by holding an apple from the tree of life to the nostril of the dying person. In the Jewish mysticism, Azrael is the embodiment of evil. So you see how we look at things, and evil is live spelled backwards, and so this play of opposites is very important in a spiritually and emotionally mature person, where we try to understand how close those opposites are. It's not like I'm just going to do good and evil, whatever that is, I'm going to keep at bay. My enemy is evil. And the crazy thing about war is it lasts for a very long time because God's on both sides. If we could understand that, God isn't at war, this thing that we call the supreme beingness. It's off creating other universes, infinite creativity. But if it's on both sides, where, it's the absurdity, because so much of it is, whether we call it God, or whether we call it the principle, or whatever we want to call it, it's symbolic of also the battle within ourselves, as above, so below. So it's also very humbling when we start recognizing, wait a second, what am I doing here? What am I voting for here? This is where we're all going to wind up, that this beloved angel, which, by the way, happens to be the most gorgeous angel of them all, its beauty is almost horrifying. And I think if people could really see it, they would be appeased, but they certainly would live life in a more poignant and deeper way, because there is a beginning and a middle and end to this thing called life, and that these angels are the ones that help us through the understanding. So this particular angel, it helps us also understand unnoticed issues that will be exposed. So when let's say we're driving and we, people are rubbernecking because they see an accident. The kind of our morbidity, our morbid fascination with death, partly because it's like, thank God it's not my today to die, but it's also, anytime we pass something, we pray. You pray for the person just in case their soul does have to leave. All the prayers help them, being one of the eyes of this angel, and that Azrael, which is the angel of death, we need to ask that may a good star convey this message to us, this ever-present divinity. It's a divinity. It's not a devil. Well, I suppose even a devil is a form of divinity, if we look at it in a complete way, right? So when we give up this, the crazy will, this is an interesting quote that I found from Jung, where he quotes here, where when you give up the crazy will to live, and when you seemingly fall into the bottomless myth and the mist, that true, real life begins with everything which we were meant to be and never reached. So this comes from a period where Jung kind of has a near-death experience. He falls into an illness. He begins to, and then he came back from this near-death experience and lived for another 2 years. But he was never quite the same because he began to realize this experience with Azrael, this experience with death. He looked at things in a completely different way. So that's what he means by when we give up this crazy will to live, and when you seemingly fall into a bottomless mist, which is what he did. He was actually in a kind of death state for a couple of weeks. Then, truly, real life begins. Everything which you were meant to be and never reached. So he had this experience where the falseness, and anybody who's had a near-death experience, you come out very differently. I had a near-death experience when I was 19 because I didn't know what it was. But something was changed forever. And it took, another decade for fate to get me to understand what it was about. And it was about the body of work, and that whoever I thought I was, that was not going to fly, and I really needed to be able to work with people and souls and help them transform and understand. So that experience led me to an understanding far beyond my age and my knowing. I didn't know that I knew, but I had to remember that I knew, and then help as many people as I can. So what Jung talks about here, he says, we need the coldness of death to see clearly. To see clearly. And there's something about coldness, which also can stop time, right? We can freeze things. It seems like water is halted. It's a very interesting element, right? So that we can see clearly joy at the smallest things come to you only when you have accepted death. But if you look out greedily at all that you could still live, then nothing great enough is going to happen. Our need for pleasure trumps, unfortunately, the need for the joy at the smallest things. All right. And that if we have enough, if we understand that there is enough in the smallest things that continues to surround you, you no longer can have the joy because it's always about, but there's something else, and but. Well, I got this answer, but I wanted this. It's like, well, you didn't earn that. or that was to the level of your imagination. Because once again, it's a co-creative universe. We are imagining and bringing things into our life, but we also, there is a sacrifice. There is a price to pay, and sometimes it has compound interest. So if there's been a kindness or a generosity that's been given forth to you, well, then part of your obligation is to help a stranger or adopt an animal or whatever act of kindness. You don't get and not give. So, you know, that balance that we need to understand. And for those that have ever done a fast, right, you give up everything. So there's a form of death. And then the first, let's say, grape you taste after a 3-day fast, you've never tasted anything so marvelous in your life. The joy is overwhelming. That's what it means. You know, we give something up, we restrain, we sacrifice, meaning making sacred too. And then the joy we experience when a new level of understanding comes into us. And so without death, life would be meaningless. So it's not something to fear. And fear doesn't protect us. And people, you know, will often say, which is understandable, well, you know, I don't mind dying, but it's the pain along the way. But it's like, nah, you mind dying, because we don't look at it. So Azrael also, he teaches us through our dreams, and he prepares us. Because the dream of the dying, even if a person doesn't consciously know that they're dying, through their dream work, there's like, oh, okay. And death is in everything that we do. I mean, we literally eat death. We cut down the plant, we kill the animal. You know, it is the beginning of death, and that's what feeds us and keeps us alive. And then we die and feed the earth or the heavens or whatever we're feeding. So, you know, we're all part of this. We are all part of this great life and death, and this particular angel that comes in with its recording is not terrifying. It is holy. It is bringing you to an understanding. It burns off the dross matter that you don't need. That kind of goes back into the earth. It's so interesting that whatever of earth we need to leave here. We don't take the body with us. We don't take anything with us. Everything goes back to earth. It separates. And when we begin to recognize that, so what is that thing in us, whether we call it the soul or our etheric body, whatever it is, begins to break off and go into, if for those who are into the Tibetan Book of the Dead, you know, we'll go into the bardo and go into these different phases. So it's interesting to study this. So we have an idea, a creative idea of what is happening rather than a superstition, because people will just accept whatever they're told and they don't explore, you know, this process, or will hide from it, or will, you know, there's a lot of superstition, which is kind of foolish because it's real. It's very much part of our reality. And so this particular angel, who is with us all the time and is constantly teaching us through our folly, is the one that will bring us, it's almost, I guess one way to describe it is a threshold. Okay, and as I explained in previous episodes, you know, a threshold is different than a doorway. A doorway we walk through, but a threshold is a state of consciousness, all right? And we can be in a threshold for years or centuries, right? If we're not passing through, it's kind of one of the first stages of transformation in consciousness. So when we go through a threshold, which is what this angel brings us through, where is it bringing us? It's bringing us towards eternity. It's bringing our loved ones. Now, we suffer here because we miss them. That's the human condition. Our heart misses those that we love. We want to be connected. But we're connected through the memory, and we're connected through the love, and we're connected through the knowing. So we are allowed, we don't want it, most people don't want it, we are allowed to know this angel. We can commune with this angel. It's not terrifying, it's not scary. We use our imagination because that is the faculty. Imagination is the faculty, it's a divine faculty. That's what that's how we use it. That's how our prayers get to heaven, is through our imagination, and then these if we're calling on the angels or whatever that we're calling upon, they help us translate and move to the higher forces. Now, the reason we have the angels is because we, as I said, we're human, and we would just burn up because the energy is so powerful. That's why very often when prayers are answered, even though they're joyful, everything blows apart. Why? Because the frequency is so high. We want something. We ask for it. We're granted it. But what is going to happen, the exchange, is you need a bigger aura. The auric field, expand it. Imagine it. If you think it goes out 12 feet, let it go out 80 feet. See a circle of 80 feet around you that you're protecting, but that's also your world, your possibilities and that's what we at the threshold with this angel, as it's erasing your name and moving you into another book of eternity. We're then met with the Lords of Karma, and they say, "So, how'd you do?" It's the punishment. Remember that gift you asked for? Did you use it? Well, I didn't quite get around to it. So nobody gets punished. It's just like, wow, really? You wanted to be an artist and you couldn't get to that, or that doesn't mean that has to be your full-time profession, but you still have to do it. So this angel is the most beloved and the most beautiful, and the one we really all talk about democratic. This is truly democratic. So that's what this angel is about. So don't be superstitious about it. Learn about it. Understand that it is part of the beloved divinity. It's part of loving. It is the holy of the holies. So just remember, the wise heart trumps any best behavior that we're here to do. So you're here to be you. And in being you, the world can be a better place. And that's what we're hopefully striving towards, our wholeness. Till next week, and I think I'm going to start next week on the myth of Inanna. It's a very powerful Mesopotamian myth. Okay. Till we meet again. Bye.
Progressive presents Mindfulness with Flow.
You are a mighty fortress of supreme knowledge. Progressive Direct has not only revealed their rates, but those of their competitors. If you were any more in the know, you would be drowning in, the know.
Compare Progressive Direct rates with competitors' rates, because knowledge is power. Visit Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Vary based on how you buy. Vary based on how you buy. Vary based on how you buy.